Marrakech. From its very conception, Marrakech has always been an ideal setting for a rural market, souk, which allowed people from the mountains to come down and buy all they need. It should also be remembered that in Maghreb, one of the oldest concepts of Pacific conquests was the notion of commercial protection. Markets and souks were placed under the protection of political or religious leader, often one of the same thing, who guaranteed their safety from marauders. Such places became a kind of neutral ground where opponents and even enemies could meet without risk. The name Marrakech would seem to be at the start of considerable debate. The most popular hypothesis holds that the name is derived from the word Marrakech or Mur Akush, which means the land of God in Berber. In the 11th century, during the reign of the Almoravids, Marrakech was the capital of a vast empire that covered most of the Maghreb and a large part of Europe as well. Marrakech benefited immensely from these conquests, and in particular from the conquest of Andalusia, since the high cultural standards of the province were quick to influence Marrakechi lifestyle and raised, for 200 years, the city to a peak of civilization that is rarely found in a town that was built out of the desert. The Almoravids were therefore the first monarchs to endow Marrakech with its role as stronghold of Islam, notably in the construction of its ramparts, most of which can still be seen today, and some of its original gateways are still standing: Bab Dukala, Bab Aylan, Bab Tbagh, Bab al-Khamis, and Bab Taghzout. When the Almoravids were succeeded to the Almohads, Marrakech enjoyed what must have been its greatest period. It was an important center of learning, the political and intellectual capital of Morocco, where the most famous scholars of the time met and where magnificent buildings surrounded by the most incredible gardens were raised. Commerce and business flourished, and the city became so wealthy that its money, the Maravids, became legal tender on European markets. On March 23, 1147, the Almohads took Marrakech by storm. The Almohads, like their predecessors, the Almoravids, came from the desert region, and their leader, Abdul very soon conquered the kingdom of Bugia, then Tunisia, and Tripolitana. In 1157, they recaptured Algiers from the Christians and became master of Seville, Cordoba, and Granada. And it was thus that, at the beginning of Almohad dynasty, Marrakech held unprecedented sway over enormous areas of territory. But Abdelmomen was also a great builder, and it was he who was responsible for the most outstanding piece of architecture in the whole of the North Africa. The minaret of Kutubiyya, most of the bookshops, which measures 42 feet along each side and rises to 226 feet, including the lantern turret. The building was probably completed during the reign of Yaqub al-Mansur, but it was Abdelmomen who was responsible for the vast gardens that make Marrakech the delightful city it is today. In the reign of Almohads, Marrakech was the lodestone that drew the most erudite thinkers of the day. But Marrakech was to be a victim of political turmoil and eventually go into a decline. There were fewer inhabitants, the monuments and buildings fell into ruin. And although the Andalusian refugees from Spain did for a time bring a spark of hope to the city's well-being, Marrakech was to lose its former glory and splendor. The Marinids subsequently became masters of Morocco, and after attacking the town, captured it in 1269. But since they already had their capital in Fez, they simply abandoned Marrakech to its fate. There still remain two minarets dating from the Marinids period, but that of the El Qasr mosques is less elegant by far than that of the Kutubiyya, notwithstanding the close similarities in architectural style. In 1529, the Saadians Shorfa from the Sus region, having declared a religious war against the Portuguese who had settled in Agadir, captured the southern Morocco, but it was only in 1551, having gained control of Morocco, that Muhammad al-Mahdi was able to settle in Marrakech and make it his capital in an attempt to raise it to its former glory. The Saadians then began the restoration of the buildings and monuments of Marrakech, and it was Ahmed al-Mansur who built the enormous luxurious palace of Al-Badi'a, which travelers and writers of the 15th century looked upon as an unquestionable marvel of the age. This palace of Carrara marble, elaborately worked plaster and panels of cedar wood, today stand in ruins, but is still used as a sit-in for the annual National Festival of Folklore. Until this period, princes and rulers had given more attention and thought to the imperial city of Fez. It was the Saadians who took it upon themselves to beautify and embellish the commercial capital. Sanctuaries reminiscent of the Almohads period were built, and the Kutubiyya, abandoned by its worshippers, was forsaken to the great mosque of El Muassin. The Bab Kala mosque became the place of worship for the well-to-do notables who lived in the surrounding district. Fez also boasted a number of fine madrasas, and although the Ben Yusuf Madrasa cannot rival the rich decoration of the Myrinid buildings in Fez, it does have an elegance and charm all of its own. Throughout its history, Marrakech has served the cause of human progress and has stamped each majestic step in its progress with the seal of greatness. Its name, its fame, the reputation of its scholars and its artists, and of its sovereigns were all carried much further than the simple frontiers of the kingdom, and combined to give a composite picture of this most marvelous of cities which one cannot help but fall in love with. This feeling is summed up in a local proverb which says that Marrakech belongs to those who have warm hearts. Jam Fna Square. You will be struck by its elegance, by the impression that it radiates, by the colors and tones that centuries have enriched, and the warm sunlight that makes the blocks of pink sandstone even brighter. The Kutubiyya is the guardian of Marrakech. Certain people claim that the name comes from the words meeting of the dead, a chilling reminder of the heads of murderers and ill-doers which the Sultan had displayed from the ramparts after their execution. Much preferred the translation Court of Marvels, which is not only one poetic but so much more faithfully describes this outstanding esplanade, but you can judge for yourselves. You will see the men who sell soup, shish kebab, skewers, grilled sheephead. You will find the water vendors trotting along as usual and ringing his little bell, who will doubtless offer to pour you a shining copper goblet of water from his goatskin holder and suggest you might like to take a photograph of him in his traditional costume, of which he is extremely proud. You will like as not need 5 or 6 films for the square alone. You will see piles of oranges, tangerines, watermelon, dates, and pomegranates, some of which pour out a stream of ruby red seeds. The public scribe will draw up a love letter, a certificate of divorce, or a business letter. The souks, Jam El Fna Square, can be considered as sort of antechamber of the souks. The souk is the place of work and business for literally thousands of people. The souks are larger than in Fez, and whereas the Fez souks tend to have narrow, straight streets, here they are wider and curved and wind in the most whimsical manner. Exploring the souks, which are like a gigantic labyrinth, is like entering another world of the two possible entrances. Take the one straight ahead, which is hemmed by the bazaars and open out to a small square where there are display of olive, mint, verbena, and absinthe. A little further, you will come to the spice shops where the shopkeepers behind the counter cannot reach the customer and use a long wooden spoon to serve, take his money, and hand back to the change. Further on, you to come to shops that sell henna, rasool, dates, almonds, and raffia baskets. Before returning, take the turning on your left and you will find the potter's souk, dishes of couscous, large earthenware jars, varnished pots from Demnat, tagine, dishes, vases from Safi, and goglets used to keep water fresh during very hot weather. Darcy said, now a museum stands closely to the Bahia Palace. This is where the master craftsmen, ma'allims, impart their skills to young apprentices who, in turn, will set up shop in the souks and keep alive the traditions of Moroccan craftsmanship. You will see them carving cedar wood, excising leather, engraving jewelry made from gold or silver, making copper trays and pots, weaving wool or silk that will go to make carpets and fabrics. While you are there, make a point to visiting the first floor with its beautiful ceilings. Among the collections in the museum, there are carpets of Shishawa, Uzgita, pottery from Safi, Amazmiz, and El Qal'a, weapon and jewelry from the Sousse, leather articles from Marrakech and the Sahara Fringe, ebony from Essaouira, marble, carved and painted plaster, and wood, a fine collection of Saadian woodwork. El Badia Palace. The Moroccan sovereign had the habit of celebrating their victories by erecting a grandiose edifice. This way, Caliph Yaqub al-Mansur, 1194 to 1198, built the three great mosques, the Giralda in Sevilla, the Kutubia in Marrakech, and the Hassan in Rabat, after his victory over the Castilians of Spain and Al-Arcos battle, 1192. Ahmad al-Mansur al-Dahabi undertook the construction of El Badia Palace after his triumph over the Portuguese army, 1578, at the battle that transformed the geopolitical map of the world, the battle known in the West as the Battle of the Three Kings. The major works lasted in Al Badia as long as 16 years, that is from 1578 to 1594, and some supplementary work went up to 1603. The multitude of craftsmen, either local or coming from Europe, worked day and night thanks to the abundance of material imported both from West and East, Timbuktu, Europe, India, and Brazil. All accounts given about the palace agree that the Al Badia was a paradise on the soil of Marrakech. Its main feature were the multitude of its domes and the vastness of its pools used to irrigate fields of gardens. It was a marvel of marvels by structure, gates, marble, arabesque, and decorum. Although most of the palace has been destroyed, the remains still prove today that time has not altered the splendor of this great monument. From this palace, stairs and bridges are left, as well as ceilings and high walls, which make up a vast enclosure wall of which the souks nest. In the center, basins of still water have been fitted out between orange plantations. It's within this setting that the National Festival of Popular Arts of Marrakech takes place. The main monuments of Marrakech, after we talked about El Badia Palace, Darcy Said, there's the ramparts. Marrakech is enclosed within the ramparts that are either pale pink or red according to the intensity of the light. The walls are about 20 foot high, 6 foot thick, and extend over a distance of 7.5 miles. Bab Dukkala are the gates to enter the old Medina of Marrakech. Bab Dabbar, Bab Al-Ailan, Bab Ghmat, Bab Taghzout, Bab Musufa, Bab Raha or Bab Larais, Bab Agnaw. They are magnificent gateways that used to lead to the Almohad Kasbahs. The Agdal is about 2 miles long and between 1,300 and 1,600 yards wide. It's surrounded by a very high wall which has a number of gates. Here you will find every kind of fruit tree which are so methodically laid out that walking around the gardens is extremely pleasant. Two enormous square pools and a number of smaller ones permit very careful irrigations. Near the southern pool, a boathouse shelters a steam launch which was built in Paris at the beginning of the century. The Agdal Gardens date from the Almohads period. El Manara, it's an Oriental-style imperial garden. Today, the Great Almohad take of this royal domain, which was originally built to provide the town with a regular supply of water, irrigates the surroundings, groves surrounded by wall of piwi. The Manara is planted with wonderful olive trees. The pavilion facing the lake. The famous pavilion is built on two floors. The ground floor, which has a projection front into which are set three arcs opening onto the lake, which itself dates from the Almohad period, the 12th century. The Majoral Garden, son of the famous Majoral Gardens, son of the famous cabinet maker who produced some Art Nouveau masterpieces in Nancy. Jacques Majorel, artist, painter, contributed with all his talent to development of Marrakech layout. He participated in the new Orientalism trend encouraged during the 20th century. He built his workshop and his house in the city where he lived. By the surrounding walls, he created a heavenly garden around the two centers of his universe. There, he gathered all sorts of exotic species coming from all over the world. This park can be visited now, recently purchased by Pierre Berge and Yves Saint Laurent. It was renovated and opened to the public. Here, the of trees and rare plants, dark green mingles with the monochrome blues of the fountains and walls. Their juxtaposition constitute of usual. The feeling of the familiar and that of the exotic are superposed to the point that no one can clearly see their frontiers. A walk in Majoral Gardens lead us here and there like a family dream. In this deep region where time and space do not care about the limits.